you know.
Definitely.
Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. We're going old school today. What do I mean by that, Kev? Is it you? Is it me? I mean, 9 years ago almost, at a kitchen table, gazing across at each other over the kitchen table, thinking we could maybe set up something that is similar to the Anfield Wrap. You know, that Liverpool podcast back in the day who have helped us massively, by the way, Kev. They guys at the Anfield Wrap, they've helped us massively. I'm Paul John Dykes, this is Kevin Graham. There's going to be an old school twinge, hue, saturation about today's show. And I'm just going to ask anybody in the comments, who do you want to see back today? Who would you welcome back with open arms today into the realms of speaking about Celtic? Come on, let us know. Who do you want to see back on A Celtic State of Mind this morning? Kev, any particular choices yourself? I'm pretty sure you will have a few, but you won't want to share them in case you upset anybody else who's tuning in and who used to join us on A Celtic State of Mind. I could sing them on. I could welcome them on in song, perhaps.
Aye, maybe it's the guy whose wardrobe was, his closet was just as big a personality as what he was.
Oh my God, I don't know if that's come across the way you intended.
No, his wardrobe. I only say closet because somebody might take that the wrong way.
No, I was just thinking that you've just basically said an inanimate object has got more of a personality than our guest.
No, became as big a personality.
All right, okay.
As big a personality.
Without further ado, like the old school movie, any of you out there who might have seen a brilliant film from back in the day, Just a Boys Game, where there's an iconic line, McCafferty, your tease out. But today it is actually Haggerty, your tease out. There he is. Tony Haggerty, welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. How are you, my friend?
I'm very well. First things first. Liverpool FC as hard as hell. United, Tottenham, Arsenal. Watch my lips and I will spell. But they don't just play, but they can rap as well. Liverpool FC. Liverpool FC.
Right, who had the record? Who had the 7-inch record? My brother bought it from Falkirk Market. 7-inch record. Yeah, absolutely. Now, hopefully everybody is tuning in. We've got the comments already flying in from our I was going to say loyal. I don't know if that's the right word. Faithful through and through. The commenters are in. Thank you everybody for getting involved, and we are streaming live across a number of different platforms. Hopefully you can see us on YouTube. And Tony, welcome back to the show. There's lots of discussion points throughout the entire season that you've maybe not had an opportunity to talk about on Acsom for sure. But what are we talking about Liverpool for? Well, Kevin and I, let's start off. The Anfield Wrap have been massively helpful to you and I and to Acsom as a whole, Kev. I mean, that's something that we need to get out there first and foremost. And anything we say today has absolutely nothing to do with those boys. Those boys are top lads, Kev. They've come up here. We've been involved in one of the documentaries that they made with, regarding Virgil van Dijk. Top lads. But you might have noticed last night that they teased a little interview that they had with someone at Celtic. And obviously it was set up at Lennoxtown, the Celtic crest, the nice green lights. Very similar to this is Acsom. The nice green lights in the curtains behind it. And everybody's saying, all right, who's it going to be?
Did you notice that as well?
Oh, well. It was Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. Why are we even moaning about this? Well, it's yet another example of Celtic allowing fans in, but not Celtic fans. So obviously when you look at the Ultras, Kev, the Green Brigade are locked out. The Union Bears are allowed in. You look at fan media, we're locked out. But other clubs, fan media are allowed in. What's your reaction to this, Kev?
Fair play to the boys for Anfield Wrap for getting an interview with the Ox first and foremost. I'm looking forward to actually hearing it. The good lads, they're good lads at Anfield Wrap. It just shows the hypocrisy of the way that Celtic are dealing with fan media at this precise moment in time. I reckon it's a bit of get it up, you ain't it? If you're looking, if I'm having a wee look at it from the outside, it's a wee bit going, we know what fan media can do, but we're not letting use them because we just didn't like yous, because you didn't toe the party line. Maybe that's me giving them a wee bit more sense in what they've got though. maybe they didn't actually realise what they were doing, but I really do think that they did realise what they were actually doing, by letting fan media in to interview a Celtic player, especially not Celtic fan media. And the other thing that I'm going to point out, that the Anfield Wrap last week got access to Jurgen Klopp via Liverpool.
Yeah.
To go and interview Jurgen Klopp. And Anfield Wrap get access to quite a lot of, especially like PR days. They get to go in and make their own content within the confines of Liverpool's training centre. So it's a big, massive get it right up you to every member of Celtic fan media that they've let and it's not the guys for the Anfield Wrap's fault that they've let fan media in there to conduct an interview with a Celtic player. And they gave them free rein with it.
Yeah, I remember
and
5
years
studio
ago. Looks very like this as Acsom.
Yeah, I know. I remember 5 years ago, Tony, I'm going to come to you. I think you're probably 30 years in the journalism and broadcast game, all in. I know you don't look old enough. There or thereabouts, about 30 years. And I remember 5 years ago being contacted by the club, and they were asking, what does this access mean to you as an individual platform? And I said at that time that as great as it is to get into press conferences, etc., and it's brilliant for some of the up-and-coming contributors. I mean, you just have to watch the Scotland-Japan game at the weekend. Amy Canavan, trackside, interviewing players as they come off the park. Absolute talent, and there's other talents coming through. There always is. Brilliant experience for people like that. But in terms of content, I mean, it didn't really give us anything useful for the channel. So my take on it was that we wanted bespoke access like the Anfield Wrap got yesterday. I was asking for that 5 years ago, Tony. We've never had it. Never once have we had that. And now we have no access whatsoever. Is this all about us and our egos and all that? I hear you ask. No, it's not. This is Celtic fans. It's about Celtic fans getting locked out. Either if you're an ultra or if you're in the fan media landscape, you're a Celtic fan, you're getting locked out of the football club. Tony, what's your thoughts on it?
First and foremost, hello. Thank you.
You're back.
I'm back, yes. Lovely to see you, Kevin, all right, and yourself, Paul John. Yeah, and hello to everybody out there. Good to be back on. Yeah, I think Kevin used the word there, hypocrisy. Read the room. In a season where you continually shoot yourself in the foot, you've done it again. I can't for the life of me, and it's you look at it and you were pretty incredulous last night. As you've already pointed out, the Anfield Wrap guys, you've got a wonderful relationship with them. Never met any of them, but I'm told by everybody who's got any kind of working relationship or professional relationship with them that they're cracking guys, and fair play to them for landing the interview. But your heart sank last night when you saw that picture. Again, as you say, imitations is a form of flattery, isn't it? Because I thought it was actually an Acsom interview when I just clicked on the picture. I thought first, what's happening here? I thought it was more bespoke content that you speak about, and then realised at the top it was the Anfield Wrap, and I thought, that's. And if you're going to let in fan media, well, go all Gerald Ford on you. It's available in any colour as long as it's not green and white. I mean, it's preposterous, isn't it? I mean, that people like ourselves and other fan media channels can't get in to effectively do their job. The whole point in fan media was that lots of people felt, lots of Celtic supporters certainly felt that the Scottish mainstream media, which I'm part of, by the way, wasn't facilitating their wishes and asking the proper questions, yada, yada, yada. But you said there you wanted bespoke content as well. And I don't think that's something that's out with the realms of possibility. But you look around at various other clubs, Liverpool being one of them, they've got a wonderful working relationship with fan media. How hard is it to cultivate relationships? This is nothing to do with ego. It's everything to do with access and giving fellow Celtic supporters the kind of content that they wish to see. And it's always been about that content that we like to, in terms of writing as well, that we want to read, content in terms of videos that we like to see online. This was what this was about all the time, and to give Celtic supporters a fan hub where they could discuss everything Everything Celtic with a wee bit of stardust, thrown in with a bespoke interview with a player like Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain or anyone else for that matter. And as you say, 5 years ago you asked that question, and 5 years ago you're still getting the same answer, rebuffed. But other fan media from other clubs are allowed in. And also you said as well that in a few weeks' time they will welcome our Rangers support into the ground, to the detriment of Celtic's Green Brigade ultra fans as well. I mean, I always say this, but seeing situations like this, somebody has to sit me down. I'm sitting down, but please make it make sense. Somebody talk to me and make that make sense to me.
Well, you've raised a really good point, Tony, and I've started saying this now. Celtic used to have what they have called a fans forum. I think, Kevin, you were banned a long time before fan media was from the fans forum. However, they did do it regularly, and I think it was a quarterly thing, Kev, for a number of years. You could obviously find out more about it. It was hidden on their website. But they've not had one since May 2025. And what I keep reiterating, and this is through everybody who tunes in, I don't know how many are tuning in at the moment because there's a problem with the counter, but generally speaking, even yesterday, tens of thousands of Celtic fans tuning into a Celtic State of Mind. And it is a little hub, as Tony called it, of fans having their own forum, Kev, where they're raising issues that we're not scared to bring up on the screen. We're not scared to pass them on to someone else if we don't have the answers. But it's something that the club doesn't do. And I remember also there was the discussions around the big push to promote the women's game at Celtic Football Club. Now, in terms of the promotion of that, that's fallen off the edge of a cliff. As far as I'm concerned, they used to have open days, influencer days, remember that? And then they opened Celtic Park and you had the Celtic End, Kev, and it was just a sea of green, white and gold. And the players thought it was an incredible boost to their performance to have that many fans in watching them at Celtic Park. We had the audacity of interviewing one of their players, and Celtic weren't happy with that and refused to give us access to any other Celtic women's players. So, Kev, I mean, hypocrisy is one word, but lunacy is another.
It is. It's just that they seem to just keep on treating the fans with contempt. And with regards to the fan media point is they do see us, not us, but they see platforms like Acsom as the enemy. Maybe that's a strong word to actually use, but competition. They see Acsom as competition, even though they've got far, far more resources and far more access than Acsom, and could produce far better content than Acsom could ever produce with those resources. And I'm not saying that to decry anything, that's just true. That is just a true fact. But they seem to just be going round a tick list, eh? It's a collective punishment thing again, ain't it? Axom's been punished for being part of a collective which says, by the way, we think you need to have a wee look at what you're doing here. So I don't like the collective punishment, but as you go through, there seems to be a wee tick box. We didn't like the ultras, so I will just make sure that they get banned, so we'll tick that off. Mm-hmm. We didn't really like supporters buses either, so we'll start reducing their tickets to every away game as years and years go by and give them more to these corporate guys.
And also, Kev, they've done it with ex-players who have spoken up about the club for a number of years, dating back to Andy Walker, for example, and some of the more current players who I'm not going to mention who are on the naughty step. And then you've got pundits from mainstream media who have got long-term bans at Celtic. So you're right. Whenever anyone rocks the boat, challenges, criticises, whatever way you want to describe it, the football club in any way, shape or form, they just ban you. They pull down the shutters, Kev.
It kind of reminds me, what do they actually want? It kind of reminds me, you go to the Costas, you go to Spain, Tenerife, places like that, and you see these Irish boozers, right? Your Flanagans and your Finnegans wakes, and you walk into it and you've maybe got a picture of James Joyce and it's all wooden panel and it's got the wee hard wooden round seats that you sit on that are uncomfy.
Kev describing your smoking lounge, Tony. Is that what Kev describing here? How you in your vast property? Yeah, I think so.
in the benches, and there's like some posters for Guinness about the place, and they charge you €10 a pint, but there's nothing Irish about it whatsoever. And I think Celtic just want brand Celtic, but they didn't want what they see as baggage with that brand, what actually makes it Celtic. So they're just going, they've got a wee tick list to go, right, we'll get rid of that wee political mob in the corner. What's next? Their supporters buses are they want us to be like Man City, Man United, and just full of tourists whose great grandfather emigrated to Australia or America at some point. They just want us to be bland, but they want to make money for the Irish connection and the politics connection, but they didn't really want it. What I mean? They just want like
they want the brand, Kev, because that generates an income and that generates an income stream, but they don't want anything else other than that. That's what I'm reading from what you're saying there. So they
didn't want the hassle with the left-wing politics. They didn't want the hassle with the Palestine flags. They didn't want the hassle of us singing rebel songs. They didn't want the hassle of like us flying tricolours and stuff like that. But they want to promote that brand because we've got, as Tony used to say, we've got an absolute unique story. They want to promote that story, but they didn't want us to actually hark back to that story and represent that story. So they've got a bit of a problem, eh?
They definitely do. And before I jump back to Tony, I'm going to bring up some of these comments. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. I don't know how many are actually tuning in at the moment. It's normally about 2,000 by this point on a Monday. But here are some of the comments coming through. Jungle Lion, always a pleasure to see you on the YouTube. No fan media, no ultras, but other clubs are welcome. Unbelievable. I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Make it make sense, as Tony Haggerty says. Make it make sense. Now, obviously, we're going back old school today, Tony, and I asked if anybody wanted anybody back from the past, and there's plenty of people who are happy that you're here. But a few other older names, I don't mean by age, I mean by appearance, have popped up. Natasha Meikle will be joining us very, very soon for an episode of This Is Acsom. She will be giving us her brilliant take on all things Celtic. Laura Bradburn was also good. She still is very good doing the huddle breakdown, and we all like Colin Watt. Big shout out to Colin, who's a busy boy now, you know, entering adulthood, Kevin, getting married and having bairns and all this kind of stuff. So Colin's a busy man. And obviously we also have a Boycey. Boycey's not on today, but we wish him well on his very unique bus. Tony Rappin. Yes, we all love a bit of Tony Rappin on a Monday afternoon. Tony,
full of watershed as well. Yeah, indeed.
What I'm going to say, though, I mean, listen, we've been on for 17, 18 minutes at the moment. There's lots of other discussion points. We're not going to labour this any longer. But again, people are saying, why don't you sit down with the club? I'm telling you right now, in the week that Wilfred Nancy, remember him? There's another one. He's not coming on. Neither's John Barnes to do the rap. But in the week that Wilfred Nancy was appointed as Celtic manager, I started asking the club at that point to sit down with fan media so that we could resolve the issue that week. So that's been 4 months now, just about, right? Almost 4 months. It'll be 4 months next week. So we have done that. We've gone through all these channels. We're not turning up at the park with forks and all this kind of stuff. But we're trying to do it the professional and civil way, Tony, but they just ignore you, don't they?
Yeah. He flicked up the comment that Rip Rory, free scoring, never boring. They're the uninspiring, misfiring, perspiring Celtic, and I include that in every aspect of the club. You know, there's toxic elements to this club just now. Yourself, Kevin, and I. This is Celtic, but not as we know it. I've said that before. And we're also watching a product of football, which is not as we know it. A team that's a dearth of real quality and real talent. And everything, the whole machine is feeding into itself. And I bet you've not had an answer from the PR department in 4 months to anything.
No indication. They've not even confirmed that we're banned, Tony.
And probably no indication that they've received your correspondence at all levels, but particularly, he says, I'm about to say, in the communication department, putting his teeth in. Shoddy doesn't even cover it. It's just, it's silence to the point of non-existence. How can you conduct any meaningful dialogue with anybody who doesn't want to get round the table, doesn't acknowledge an email, doesn't acknowledge a phone call, doesn't acknowledge a text, to actually say they got it, and even, you know, get a common courtesy. I always say, you know, somebody once said to me, you'll like this person, they're a good Celtic man or a good Celtic woman, and my response was always, are there any other kind? But I am since finding out there are other kinds. Common decency, you were brought up with common decency. If someone addressed you via email, text, letter, telegram, whatever you like, however old you are and your form of communication memory stretches back, you responded. And Celtic are, you know, the silence coming from Celtic, it's incredible. I really, you despair and you say to yourself, is that the way real Celtic supporters, real Celtic men and women conduct themselves? Do you really think that silence is going to cut it ad infinitum? Because it won't. You play the long game with this, but at this minute in time, it is utterly frustrating that nobody at Celtic can articulate anything in a positive way. I mean, the communication department just leaves a lot to be desired. It really does. You should call it the lack of communication department or the lack of PR department, because that's what it is. And we don't see these things for dramatic effect. You've just told me you're waiting an answer from something from 4 months ago.
4 months.
Well, I mean, in any other walk of life or in any other...
And I won't let it go, Tony. I won't let that go.
No, why should you? Because I get back to it. It's common decency, it's common courtesy to respond, to get round the table to say, okay, what is it you're after? How can we resolve this? This is a club in need of healing. It's tearing itself apart and has been all season at various junctures. But there's a common denominator in it all. It's not you and I. It's not the rank and file supporters, the ones that pay their hard-earned season ticket money. It's those upstairs, and then those under those upstairs who are functioning in every other department. There's a toxicity within this football club that needs getting rid of. And you know how you get rid of that? You start by talking. You start by getting round the table, and you start by meaningful dialogue. We can't even get to the baseline. Then what chance do you have? And I genuinely wring my hands in despair at this football club and the way it's conducted its affairs and its business this season. And, you know, and matters on and off the park are mirror images of each other, aren't they?
They absolutely are.
Microcosmic of what's rotten in the state of Denmark in the minute, or rotten in the state of Celtic Park at the minute. It's no, is it?
Well, the thing is, I've said before, Kev, and we will get on to some football matters for this weekend because we are back to the domestic game this weekend. But what I've said before, and I mean, with regards to the decision-making process and the way that the club is operating, I've got a very interesting scale here, which I'll bring up in just a moment to say that, yeah, in terms of a financial level, the club has been operating in a successful manner. I don't think it's maximising that, but I will bring up and give credit where credit is due in terms of the books, if you like. However, Kev, what I've said in the past is I'm not sure if you've got a generation almost of bodies and names. You know, Martin O'Neill walked into Celtic Park 20 years after he departed as an employee, right? So he leaves in 2005, he comes back in 2025, he's greeted by the same people, he walks into the PR team, he's speaking to the same people. Things have not changed in 20 years. And during that period, we have been very successful, both on and off the park, right? However, I think what then happens is you've also got to deal with adversity, and I don't think Celtic are very good at that. So if you look at the COVID season, we couldn't deal with it. Other clubs dealt with that better than we did. And you look at this season, we bit of adversity, we just can't deal with it. Because I think we've got very complacent, Kevin. I remember there being a headline you and I were on, and I think it was, what was it, fat, lazy and complacent or something we called those running the football club. They had an issue with the fat bit, but we didn't mean in terms of your physical appearance. We just meant as an idea of a football club becoming really lazy. And I think we've seen that. They've been lazy in terms of the opposition. Hearts have basically pulled their pants down when it comes to data analysis this season, showed us up for the lack of at our football club. And I think they've become complacent when it comes to the relationships between fans as well, Kev. Complacency, I think success can sometimes breed that. And the only way that you can rid yourself of that as a business is to have a plan of change, 3-5 years, get the boardroom changed, get these departments changed, get new ideas in. We're very reluctant to do that, aren't we?
We are, because what they'll actually say is what he's moaning about. We've had 26 years of success. What are you actually moaning about? It was the meetings that you go back to in October when the executive board in the room actually admit that they think just qualifying for European group stage football is a success.
Yeah.
Shows you the level of ambition. I think they've got complacent, and we're here because of the lack of ambition that they've had for a number of years. When I was involved, behind the curtain, the way that they treated fans is no different from the way that they're actually doing it now, but we were winning. Nobody was bothered. Nobody was chatting the doors asking them to change things, go have a look at themselves. There was guys like myself who were asking them, and hundreds of others going, go and have a look at yourself. But we were in the minority. The thousands weren't actually bothered. But the way that they actually treated us is the exact same as what they do now. All they do is just batten down the hatches and just keep on going. And go, no, we'll just silence, we'll ride it out, we'll come out the other end, we'll maybe get to the end of the season and we'll see what we can do. We'll appoint a new manager, we'll get a wee bit of a boost, and we'll go into next season. Because if we lose the league title this season, the focus gets away from Europe and people start looking again, let's just get that league back. And that suits them right down to a T. That takes them back to where they want to be. I just focus domestically. Didn't worry about that wee thing called Europe, because it doesn't really matter to us. You're going to show that the figures. I'll go to, everybody's probably seen it now, the guy, I think it was the Sunderland ex-chief executive, had done the business of football.
Yeah.
But about Celtic, and what is it he says? It's a farcical way to run a football club which is so big and so strong. Where Charlie Methven. That's a fella where they've never made an attempt to increase revenue streams out with prize money. So you get the Champions League money, but what he's talking about. I must admit, it was great to see Stevie Mullen back on This Is Acsom on Friday or Saturday. I watched it yesterday. I can just picture Stevie Mullen and Jim Orr walking about ancient Greece in togas, delivering wisdom to the masses. When he was talking, I can just picture that.
I want to see the movie poster of that one, Tony.
I'm correct. Yep. Mm-hmm, yep. That'd be good.
But as he says, the hotel should have been built. They should have went, right, football can flip, it can be a penalty kick here, a sending off. But if we've got a hotel there, that can bring in other revenue, which is virtually guaranteed season or season. If we have a really good season, it brings in more income. We've done nothing to bring in any other income apart from sell players and hopefully get into the Champions League. And we've failed 7 out of 9. We all know how much that we failed in that. So I'll go back to that Charlie Methven. Even though the figures look absolutely fantastic, it's been a farcical way to run a football club. And I'll go to guys like that, and it's all down to a lack of ambition. No, we can't compete in Europe. How many times we actually heard that? The only person, it's funny that you actually mentioned that before I let Tony in, that Martin O'Neill walks back in 20 years later and he's still got the same, all the same faces are still there. The only person that's happy since he left 20 years ago is the PR man, because the team that he supports are top of the league. So that's he'll be going into his work with a smile on his face every day. Allegedly.
The thing is, Kev, the thing with that is, right, I could go back to the place where I was brought up and I could walk into the same boozer and there will still be some people who were there 20 years ago sitting at the bar saying the same stuff. And it feels a wee bit like that, the way that the football clubs run. Tony, I remember episode 1 of a Celtic State of Mind all those years ago with Kev, and me and Kev had the discussion about, I was still of the belief at that point, Celtic are a European force. They are a European club. We should be looking at Champions League. And Kev was saying to me, be realistic about this. We are not. And I don't think that was because Kev didn't want to be. It was because he was looking at the board and their lack of ambition. Now, these figures that I brought up, Tony, Swiss Ramble, big shout out to you guys. Go and check it out on their Twitter page, their social media channels, etc. Why am I bringing this up? Well, this shows you how well financially Celtic have been operating. We always hear tin pot Scottish football, my granny would score 40 up there. My argument has always been, send any of your clubs up to Scotland in the last 5 minutes if you want to base it on that argument, because you're working on a completely different financial landscape, right? So a Scottish football club going down there would not be doing it on Scottish money, and vice versa. So this actually shows you that, and this is the over half, just over half of the 92 clubs in the top 4 divisions have published their accounts, right? And from the half, 46, I'm going to say off the top of my head, is that about right? Only 4 are profitable, and it lists them there. So to be a profitable football club is not an easy thing to do, Tony, and we take that on board. We're very profitable. However, what Kev was saying there, the last time I was speaking to someone in terms of the finance, and it might have been David Lowe, who'll be back on the show again at some point in the future, in terms of the financial structures that Celtic have in place, some of which we don't have as much influence over as others, we rely on the fans and we rely on Champions League money. So you've got to look after those strands, and we haven't looked after either of them. Now, that could be absolutely crucial to the future of this football club and the financial stability of Celtic Football Club, Tony.
Yeah, I've still got the vision of Jim and Stevie and the and the togas, and with the headline "Pedagogues in Paradise." Yeah.
There you go. That's another one that you're going to have to copyright or trademark.
That's for all those who have got a bit of wisdom. Mine is usually Norman wisdom, but hey, my brainwave there. No, you're right. We've spoken about this many times, why Celtic can't be an entity both domestically and in Europe. Why can't we be that? And we've always arrived at the same answer: that lack of ambition. This is a club that needed a striker to fire the goals that would win them the title, that would get them access to the Champions League. They had 77 million quid round about that sitting in the bank. Spent nothing. And what's the biggest problem now with Celtic winning this title? We're not scoring goals.
Yep.
Right? We've got 4 strikers who've got 12 goals between them. And I know that because I was speaking on a podcast earlier this morning, and one of the boys did an article about that. 4 strikers who've scored 12 goals between them, and one of them is on loan at Bolton. Right? And to me, that sums up everything, right? That sentence itself. You have 4 strikers who have scored 12 goals between them. Guys, you're old enough to remember every striking double act from arguably the 70s onwards, right? You know, we'll not list them, but some of them are legendary, right? And you were saying to yourself, it's a bad season if they don't hit 20, 25, 30, that kind of thing, right? This club just never, it's never proactive. It's always reactive. And you talk about, you big them up. They're a well-run football club, but to the detriment of what? Detriment of the team. And see, if we had signed said striker, we'd probably still have Brendan Rodgers at the helm.
Yep.
There's a reason why Martin O'Neill's back. There's a reason why he came back twice. There was a reason why they brought in Wilfred Nancy for the full 33-day experiment. Unbelievable. Right? This football club, again, going back to it, various departments, you say to yourself, if you're doing that in your own job, you're sacked. You're sacked because you're not fit for purpose. And this football club has never been ambitious like the 3 guys sitting here and tens of thousands of others in terms of their European outlook, in terms of the way they approach that competition. The modern day Celtic is built on the fact that the couple of the big years resides in, or a replica resides in Celtic, and we have a gold star It's how we made our name. Yet somehow worst case scenario, and you look at the worst case scenario for Celtic this season, Celtic might need to win the Scottish Cup to get into the Europa League qualifiers. If they finish third, because it's Conference League qualifiers, and as Kevin says, that'll suit certain people down to the ground upstairs, because their eye will be off the ball and be like, well, we need the title back. Why does it always have to be reacting? Ange came in and he had to react to the fact that Celtic blew the 10. Celtic should have won the 10 out the park.
Mm-hmm.
Still be making money and millions of it on anything marketable with 10 on it. Yet they blew that big style again because what we say, falling asleep at the wheel or just don't care. Or, again, lack of communication. You spoke about a 3-year plan, 5-year plan and all this. There is no plan. I'd love to see where the due diligence is on a new manager. I bet they're nowhere. All these names being bandied about is maybe agents touting somebody or, hearsay. I'd love to see if Celtic are any further forward in their search for a manager, because I bet they're not. And crucially, that will determine also the future of this football club, where it's going for the next 3 years to 5 years. But, in terms of the Champions League, we've just never, ever treated it with the reverence that it deserves, in my opinion, and the riches that it can provide for a club who is always tooled up for it. And you look at that, you flicked up the Swiss Rambles accounts there. That tells you all you need to know. There is no point in having 77 million in the bank if you're not prepared to spend it. You may as well have 77 quid. It doesn't make any difference, does it? And
exactly.
And an elite level manager found that out to his detriment this season, and Martin O'Neill found that out as well in January, when they just weren't prepared to grant him the striker that would score the goals that could maybe win a title.
And the thing is, well, sorry to jump in at this point, Kev, right? But see that money, which is obviously it's going in the other direction now. It's going down, because obviously there's been massive changes in terms of no more Champions League income this season. There's been a campaign set up by fans called Not Another Penny, which will hit the club in the pocket over that period of time. And then you get to the point that we've always sold two big assets every season. We've just done it. Just look at your departures. We have done that, and we've profited by selling two big assets. This season, it was Adam Ida and Nicholas Kuhn. Who's it going to be next season, and what's that going to look like? Because if you don't have that as part of your ongoing strategy, and that falls down, then your money in the bank's obviously going to decrease. And that's exactly what's happened. As we sit here right now, that money is decreasing. And also because of the profits that we're making, rather than having a plan, we spend something like £8 to £12 million a year on corporation tax. But the thing is, though, Kev, if they were to come out as a football club, going back to the communication and the PR aspect of this, and say, look, we do have all this money in the bank, but this is our plan. A section of it's going to go into this area of the football club. Let's say youth development. All right. So they've done something at Barrowfield. Great. A section is going to go over here to install a new department that's going to deal with recruitment, scouting, and also data analysis. Because, ladies and gentlemen, for a bespoke system, it might cost you £1 million a year just for the license. Then you might look at all the other infrastructure within Celtic, including the stadium, the footprint, the museum, the hotel, etc., etc., etc. The global fan base. How do you maximise the global fan base? I pitched an idea that would do it like that. What's Celtic doing at the moment, Kev? What they're doing, right, on the morning that it's been revealed that this World Cup is going to be covered in such a way over the powers of YouTube that it's going to blow your mind. What is Celtic doing? Oh, well, we'll give you 90 seconds on YouTube, Kev, and then you can go behind a paywall on our antiquated website, a clunky website behind a paywall, and watch the rest there. Or indeed, download the app. They're behaving in the terms of media like it's 2006. YouTube is always the place to be when it comes to content creation. I consume 12 to 14 hours of it a day when I'm working. That's exactly where people consume their content, Kev. Not on an app and not behind a paywall. So, I mean, I don't know what on earth the club are doing. We are so out of touch. Someone said there, if you go into your local boozer, it'll also still have the same carpet that it had 20 years ago. And when you go into a Fife boozer from the Villages, that's the carpet we've got. And if you know, you know, right, ladies and gentlemen. Kev, sorry, I jumped in there, mate. On you go.
No, you're right. I mean, Tony's talking about Martin O'Neill not getting a striker. I think it's very, very clear that the club did not want to commit to spending any money whatsoever after May. So the January transfer window was, well, it was framed that way. Right, Martin, Sean and Fozzie. You can get players, but it's loan deals only. And the one that looked like that we were going to sign, we're going to make sure we can convert that to a loan deal because he actually won a raffle and doesn't look like a football player. So we got lucky with that one. But they wanted to cut the wage bill. So when they come out in the summer, and all the things you mentioned, we had no Champions League football, the attendances we're doing in the second half of the season, user no buying merchandise. That means that we need to sell 15 players and cut the wage bill. And we'll get the blame for it. Where that was probably always their plan anyway. And folk are talking about these managers coming in. Whatever the manager comes in is going to need to work with one hand tied behind his back, because the folk in charge will want to cut this wage bill drastically. And it's already been mentioned. You look at how many Celtic statements come out. This is the biggest wage bill that we've ever had. And it's no like they're celebrating the fact. It's like, oh no, have a look at that, Dougal. Have a look at that. We can't have that. That's the biggest wage bill that we've ever had.
Oh, who's Dougal? Who's Dougal? Who's playing that part?
That's Michael Nicholson.
You visualised it, so come on, spit it
out. Father Ted's Chris Mackay and Dougal's Michael Nicholson. I ken that they're watching this anyway, so sorry lads, sorry if I've insulted you there, because somebody for Celtic will be watching this. So you ken in the summer they're going to come out with that. We're going to drastically cut the wage bill, and this is how I reckon that Ascu's in the frame. Or in the frame, because it's a cost-cutting exercise. This is where we should maybe square off in your minds, in your darkest moments and fears. Square off in your mind that Steve Clark could end up being your manager.
Stop it. The last time you said that was Jack Ross. Stop that chalk.
No, but
even Tony's dog's not having that.
Square it off in your mind that if we're going to go into a massive exercise of cost cutting, and the board will blame it's our fault. You've never bought that training kit. It's Brendan Rodgers' fault. He bought all this rubbish, and the wage bill's too big. We will cost cut, and we will drastically slash the wage bill and how much that we actually spend out, and the manager will reflect the way that club's actually going to go. It will reflect the way that club's going to go.
That is stark. And you were saying in your deepest, darkest recesses of your mind. That's what I see in the deepest, darkest.
I'm just picturing walking into that pub and old Willie's still sitting at the bar and he's been dead for 5 years and nobody's actually noticed.
Yeah, I mean, listen, all my friends in the Villages of Fife, it's nothing personal. It's just the way it is, basically, right? I'm going to bring up some of these comments. Heavy vibes. What happens to the 77 million? I'm glad you brought that up. The 77 million doesn't belong to him. Therefore, it sits where it is. But there's a train of thought that we're fattening up the goose for a sale. And I know that there's been people talking about that during the week. Personally, and the people that I've spoken to, there's no proof that is in the offing. If he sells up right now, he's maybe increasing the value of the football club by having this big, massive mountain of cash sitting there, but he certainly doesn't take it with him. That's not how it works. He might increase the value of his own shares because
he's not going to sell up.
Let's remember, he is only a shareholder.
He's not going to sell up. That's not going to happen. The only reason that he would sell up is if we moved either into another league. That is the only reason that he's going to sell.
That was always the plan, Kev, wasn't it? Let's be honest. That was always the plan. And since 1998, That's been kiboshed because there was a new ruling introduced after the 1998 World Cup. We spoke to David Lowe about this on the show with the proposed takeover of Wimbledon Football Club, Operation Strawberry. If you've not watched it, it is true. Don't know why they called it Strawberry, but watch the episode on YouTube. Celtic plan to buy Wimbledon, move everything lock, stock, change the name, change the kit, change the home address, etc., and play their football in England. They introduced new rules to kibosh that. So that was, I think, originally the plan, Kev. You come through a period of COVID where, in terms of the finances, that was probably an opportunity post-COVID to do something cross-border, and it didn't even happen then. So it's unlikely to happen. And yes, it is. It's the Overlook Hotel, 573 versus 13. That's what it is. Red Rum, indeed. Best movie ever made, in my humble opinion. Blocked the mutants. I will plunge. Just name them. Just call them out. I've blocked a couple already today. Let me know who they are, and they will be blocked. Scott McGill. Always great to see you popping in. The Business of Sport podcast on YouTube is a brilliant watch. If you want to understand how strong our club is financially, and hence why we are one of the richest clubs in Europe, go and do it. What you'll also find, because it's so well informed, is you come away from it quite frustrated. Now, there's other news. There's other news to talk about. How good was it, Tony, to see Nakamura back at Paradise, back at Celtic Park? Brilliant, wasn't it? Wholesome content. Wholesome content.
Wholesome content. And how good would it have been to have gone there representing Acsom and spoke to Nakamura, who
there you go.
Famously had his translator when he was part of Gordon Strachan's team called Maka, and it was Maka and Naka. You couldn't make that up, but that's true. And I think he like Dyson Maida, I think he was very cute. Did speak a bit of English, but never really let on. And as they all do, and that's fine. But Maka was a permanent fixture in that dressing room and became almost as popular as Naka with the players.
Have they got more medals than James Tavernier?
There's every chance he has, yeah. Every chance he has. But I don't think you can think of Naka without the Rolodex in your mind. You know, going to one of his goals. Pick whatever one's your personal favourite. You know, the Manchester United free kick, the swerver against Rangers, the goal that won the goal of the season with the chip over Derek Stilley, Dundee United. But just there's some people who just seem to float in their Celtic career, didn't they? Naka was a floater. Lubo was a floater. You know, they just every time you picture them, they're doing something extraordinary and special. And you know, their career, their Celtic career was hallmarked by those moments, and maybe not necessarily the greatest players per se, but they're still legendary for their exploits because they provided great moments. And it was great to see them back. And there's somebody who affection for the football club will never wane, and they will go back to Japan and talk up Celtic, and that's wonderful. I've always said that when we lost Bertie Auld, we lost Mr. Celtic, because Bertie Auld spread the good gospel of Celtic to everybody and anybody who wanted to hear it. And I just think when you have players like Nakamura and Lubo and stuff like that, they will spread the good gospel of Celtic. Spoken to a few of them recently, like Paul Elliott, stuff like that. They spread the good gospel of Celtic to everybody and anybody who wants to hear it. And I think Naka's like that. And I think he retains a really special place in the hearts and minds of Celtic supporters. And it's very affectionate, isn't it? You look at Naka and you just smile, don't you? Because you're thinking of all the goals and all the all the wonderful moments that he provided for the football club. And as you say, it'd have been brilliant to chew his ear for 5 minutes and ask him about certain things, wouldn't it?
I know, Tony. I know, absolutely. Opportunity lost. I remember the goal at Rugby Park. We later found out that the band James were actually in the stand behind the goal because Tim Booth's pally with Gordon Strachan. And whenever Strachan wanted tickets for James. He got the best seats in the house. And when they were up in Scotland and they wanted a ticket for the Celtic game, they were put in beside the fans behind the goal. And Saul and Tim Booth and all that loved every single second of it.
Everyone will remember this because see, prior to that, not everybody sees the free kick, the one he bends in, but see, just prior to it, as they're lining it up, I think Gary Caldwell's in the picture and Naka gives it one of them. I've got this. And it's like the last minute, isn't it? It's like the dying embers of the game. And if somebody's got the footage, they will see it. There's two people standing. If memory serves, it's Caldwell. It might be somebody else. And he kind of steps forward and Naka gives it as if anyone else is going to hit a free kick. And it is genuinely one. Because I remember I was in the Daily Record office at the time. And I looked at one of the sports editors and I said, "Did you see that? He just told me, get out the road. He's going to score. He knows he's going to." Sure enough, he puts it in the net. But if anyone has got the full match of that, they'll see that. Whoever it is, he just step to the side and he curls it in, and Strachan does his wee run down the touchline, doesn't he?
Yeah, what a memory. What a memory.
Yeah, so it's funny how things come into your mind, you know?
It's the JFK thing, isn't it? Where were you when? Where were you when, Tony? Nakamura, he obviously had his translator. When we spoke to Scott Brown in December for our sold-out event at Blair's Art and Design, Scott
Did he
Brown,
have a translator?
No, two fifers on the stage. I mean, we understood what he was saying.
Did you have Rab McGlinchey doing sign language for
his translator would be called Looney or something, Bruni and Looney, you know what I mean? Something like that.
Too much digging coming from the old Fife angle here, lads, right? But the point was, he said that he met Nakamura years after their time at Celtic together. And like Tony said, he went nowhere without his translator. And he just said something to Nakamura like, you know, how's it going? How's it going? And he answered, obviously not with accent, "I know bad, Bruni." And it was just a ruse so that he didn't have to do PR and media. He can speak perfect English. But he kept that going for ages, for years, all this time at Celtic. But I bring up Bruni in relation to the news this morning that he's gone. He's left his position at Ayr United after 168 games in management with Ayr and Fleetwood. He is now jobless. What do you make of that, Kev?
Can he put the bits on and come in at the midfield for Sunday?
He looks fit enough, I'll tell you that much.
Two things just to go back. You mentioned James, and they've got the line in their famous song "Sit Down." If I hadn't seen such riches, I could live with being poor. I think that sums up Celtic's season this season, and I think it does. Tony, I maybe wouldn't chew Naka's ear, but I'll maybe give him a wee kiss on the lips. Chewing his ears a wee bit. That's a wee bit too forward for me, mate.
He's still alone, I suppose.
That's just when you say that there. Yeah. I don't think it's a surprise with Bruni. And Ayr have been on a wee bit of a downward slope for a wee while now. It'll be interesting what he actually does next. Maybe Steve Clark's assistant.
It will be interesting because
but now he's done the pundit gig. He might take a wee time out and do the punditry gig for a wee while and see what comes up.
Something will come up over the World Cup period for sure. There is no doubt about that. Celtic legend Scott Brown, will he ever come back to Celtic in any capacity? Who knows? I think what you need to do is go away and assess your next move in a situation like that, don't you? You really do. In relation to Araujo then, we've had mixed messages, Tony. What's the word on the street? We've heard that he's out for the season, or indeed he might come back post-break. He's obviously injured, not sure if it's after he fell from the rafters in that nightclub after the Rangers game, or if it was just something a wee bit more training related. What's the take on this? When's he coming back?
The quad, isn't it? The hamstring quad, thigh quad or something like that. I think that's the.
I hope it's not the oleopsis. Now, I'll tell you something. I don't have a degree in biology, but I tore mine once. Oh my words. The pain was incredible. And that's the wee bit right at the top of your quad. And that takes months. In fact, it's still not right, years later.
Well, the thing about it is that you're hearing contrasting report. The initial report said that was him. He kicked his last ball for Celtic. Then there's other reports saying that he could come back after the Scottish Cup semi-final. Would he be fit enough after that? That's the middle of April, isn't it? Who knows? My own thoughts are I wouldn't want to rush him back because of any injury setbacks. You know, I'm taking it that it could be the end of Araujo Celtic career, and anything after that's a bonus. I made the point on another podcast that's talk on that Araujo giving you a spectacular moment with the last minute winner at Rugby Park, and he was improving with every game, but he was more kind of a cult figure in the Celtic supporters for what he did off the football field. So you can argue about his contribution and the fact that, to me, a Celtic or a cult Celtic hero doesn't necessarily mean that you get it up Rangers, for want of a better expression. You know, I want him to be remembered for that loan spell. It's been terrific, and you know he's had a couple of good games, and he scored a fantastic goal at Rugby Park. But the kind of stuff about getting under Rangers' skin and all that's kind of overshadowed a lot of what he was brought here to do, and that was to be, you know, footballer first and foremost. You spoke about the swinging from the rafters as well. There's all sorts of stories came out surrounding that in the aftermath of the Scottish Cup victory and penalties at Ibrox. Whether or not they're true, you know, can't confirm or deny because nobody's given me a definitive on it. But you know, so I think he'll be a blow because I think you need people like that in your team for the last 7/9 games if they go to the Scottish Cup final and be successful. Alistair Johnston's on his way back, but I just hope that doesn't, necessity, push Alistair Johnston, further down, or further up the pecking order, not in terms of his comeback. Because I want Alistair Johnston to be ready when he's ready, not rushed back. Tony Ralston or Colby Donovan is going to be on Dundee on Sunday, isn't it? Hobson's choice. But Araujo will be missed. Of course he will, because I think the dig and the spirit and the fight to help Celtic in these games. But a lot of that was off the field stuff, and I would rather it was on the field. That's just my...
No, but Tony, I'm going to pick up on that. This is a very good point, right, that you make, because listen, back in the day, I'm going to bring this right back to having that knowledge and imparting that knowledge of what it means to be a Celtic player and represent Celtic Football Club. And some of the players, having spoken to loads of ex-players over the period for either Acsom or the books or documentaries, etc., they tell me, even just the other week there, Danny Craney was talking about how Danny McGrain used to do that. He would take the young guys aside and he would give them words of wisdom. Right, Tommy Burns. I've heard so many stories about Tommy Burns doing that. To young players or players coming into the side, this is how you represent yourself as a Celtic footballer. Peter Grant talks about there being a bit of pressure even to this day that he is Peter Grant of Celtic, and with that comes a responsibility to conduct himself in public in a certain way. All these years later, Now, Kev, the thing is, right. The first thing I'm going to say is Celtic players of the 70s and 80s got up to hijinks. Of course they did. No, everybody had a phone to film it. That was the difference. Social media didn't exist. People got into scrapes and all this kind of stuff. And players have to let loose now and again, once in a while, Kev. But there are those with power at the club who hate that. They hate the Instagram, trend of filming everything and having full sleeve tattoos is even an issue to some people at Celtic, if the rumours are to be believed, Kev. For me, a cult player is someone who becomes a cult player for what they do on the park. I agree with Tony in respect to that. I don't want my memories of Araujo being sullied by hanging from the rafters. I want to remember him jumping into the crowd, because that makes you a cult player. Jumping into the crowd because he's scored a 96-minute winner against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park to keep us alive and keep us in the race. That's what I want to remember him by. I also agree with Tony in relation to, until Alistair Johnston is 100% fit and ready to go, pick Tony, pick Colby, whoever's the best choice on that particular given day. but do not rush Alistair Johnston back. If it's the last we see of Araujo, how would you sum up his Celtic career? He certainly burned brightly, Kev.
Well, he went up like a flare, eh? He went up like a green spoke bomb, absolutely superb, loved him. If you go back to Tannadice a couple of weeks ago, I think we missed his character, because he is a character. He has got, at Tannadice, I think the jerseys shrunk on the boys, and in the second half when we won 1-0 down, the team basically chucked it. And Araujo is better option than Donovan and Ralston. So for that, I'm going to miss. His performance at Tynecastle was superb. I think a lot of 42-each draw. He was absolutely immense that day at Tynecastle. Well, that team needs characters. They lack characters for these last couple of games. Well, the 7 league games that we've got. So we'll miss him. We will really miss. Like Tony, I didn't expect him back. On your Alistair Johnston point, Johnson's not going to risk not playing in the World Cup. So he's not going to rush himself back. So
that's true. And if he's not playing, he can certainly get a punditry job, that's for sure.
Yeah. And on your Danny McGrain point, that's why we need pedagogues in paradise. To say to the players, this is how you do it. This is how you be a Celtic.
You're spot on.
When we're going to Dens on Sunday, we need 11 guys who are not going to shirk if they go 1-0 down. And that team at Tannadice basically chucked it as soon as we went 1-0 down. There was nothing there. They absolutely, when even they got to a point where they just went like that. Nah, by the way, we're not coming back into this, and they shrank. They basically shrank in front of our eyes.
When you look at it, Kev, do you bring back the likes of James Forrest and Tony Ralston for games like this then? People who know what this entails, know how to get it over the line, probably are miles away from being the first or even the second choice at Celtic, but it's not about that at the moment. It's about turning up. So do these types of players come back into the side for you?
Well, I think Ralston's probably going to come back in, because I think Donovan's injured as well, eh? So Donovan was withdrawn for the Scotland under-21s. So, and he got a nasty one at Tannadice. Did he clatter the advertising board when he tried to put it across when he was offside, and he should never have been offside? So you probably think Ralston's going to come back in with default. James Forrest is still the best winger at the club, and that says it all, really. So, but you're only going to get a decent 35 minutes for James now.
That's it. Yes,
that's it. So is he better coming on? Again, it's what are Martin O'Neill and Sean talking about this week? They're probably just having a look at, right, what front three in midfield could work this week, and hope for the best, because that's what we've been doing. I think we're a decent cup side. I think we can win one-off games because we've got the character to actually do that. But to try and win 6-7 games in a row, I just think we're lacking up front, and I just do. Eh? I'm really. I want the biggest game for me in the next couple of weeks is that semi-final, because I really, really want to see Martin get a send off on the last day of the season.
Absolutely. Tony's itching to get in. What I would say, in relation to going on a consistent run, as I've said before, Rangers and Hearts have won 6 league games consecutively this season. Celtic have won 5. That's the maximum that the 3 teams have won. I don't think any of the 3 teams are going to win 7. Right. So when Callum McGregor came out the other week and said we need to win 5 or 6, actually, mathematically, he's probably right. I know that there was a reaction to that. We should be going for 7. I don't think any of the 3 teams are going to win 7 games from the final 7. But what you need to tap into, like you say there, Kev, is a lot of that for me is mentality over ability. Sorry, Tony, in you come.
No, but you answer your own question there in terms of you've got no faith in this team to win 7 out of 7. Because you look at this team and it is bereft of real quality, talent, characters, as Kevin's talking about. You know, it's bereft of them all. Somehow, by hook or by crook, we're going to have to magic up goals, magic up, creativity over the next 7 league games and hopefully 9 games in the cup. Can we do it? Your initial answer to that is, I don't know. But the only saving grace and only hope you've got is the fact that Hearts and Rangers aren't much better. and it is going to be cutthroat in the run-in, but the dearth of talent and quality in this squad summed up by the fact that you're heading to Dundee for the 4th time this season on Sunday, and you've been to Dundee 3 times already and took nothing out of 9. There you go. Nothing out of 9, right?
Dear me.
Your away form's shocking, and it
That's
has been
how
shocking
it
for well over a year, man.
For any other season, you take 9 out of 9 is more or less a given. That's not being complacent. I'm just talking about form and facts. And they've taken nothing out of 9 to Elvis Presley's Dundee. Sorry, Stephen Presley. Elvis Presley.
No, you were right.
And Dundee United, Jim Goodwin's Dundee United. So that for me, again, is a damning statistic. It's also a damning statistic. It's also damning on the whole recruitment process as well. That a Celtic team has gone to Dundee 3 times this season and came away with deadly squat.
That means we're winning 4-0 on Sunday. Cheers for that, Tony. That's brilliant. You've got me fired up now. You've got me fired up now.
If we're working on law of averages, fine, but you are basing that on blind faith and optimism, aren't you? And hope, because there's nothing to suggest this Celtic team's capable of going to Dundee and not coming away with a duck egg again.
That is alarming. It's alarming, Tony, because you're basing it not on opinion but on fact and on statistics. So, yeah, listen, thank you everybody for getting involved. 3,200 is how many we've had in the room today. So thank you all. It's a Monday afternoon. We welcome back Tony. The first thing he does is he starts giving us a wee song, the Anfield Rap, the original Anfield Rap. We love the Anfield Rap guys, by the way, the Liverpool podcast guys, John and the boys, brilliant. Very hospitable every time we're down there as well, Kev. So this is not a dig at them. Thank you, every single one of you, for tuning in. With 3,200 live, give us a thumbs up on the YouTube video. It always helps with the algorithm. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Lots to come in the world of a Celtic state of mind. We are here to stay, that much is sure. All that left for me to say is, once again, this is like going back in time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me, Kevin Graham and Tony Haggerty, on a Celtic state of mind.
Cheers.